Okay, we're going to go ahead and start up with the procedure, beginning with step 1. You can read along with me as I demonstrate these procedure steps. One of the things that you're going to use quite frequently throughout the lab is your hot water bath, and so oftentimes it's a good idea as you come into the lab to go ahead and get that going right away. Strike your match, then turn on the gas and slide the match up the side to ignite the burn, and then go ahead and throw the match away. You want to make sure that your water bath is about half to 2/3 of the way full, and keep an eye on it. As the water boils and vaporizes, you want to periodically refill your water bath. Make sure that you don't add any cold water to a hot piece of glass because you'll end up shattering the beaker. So you want to keep an eye on it and just slowly add small amounts as it starts to get low. Okay, so here we go. We're going to begin step 1. You'll always, when you start, need to come to me with an empty test tube and tell me exactly what solution you need. So for you guys, as you begin, everyone is going to come to me at the stockroom door and tell me that you need the known test solution for step 1. And I'll be giving you approximately 3 milliliters of this known test solution for you to take back to your station and begin working. Okay, now keep in mind, right now we're working on the known. We know what's in here, and your job is to practice so that you can see how to do all the procedure steps. So it says receive approximately 3 milliliters of the unknown, in this case it's the known, test solution in a test tube from your instructor, and add 20 drops of HCl. That's hydrochloric acid. So we're going to count out 20 drops. Okay, now if you take a close look at this, we're going to have our cameraman zoom in. Come on up a little closer. What you're going to notice is that when you add the HCl, you're going to get a precipitate. It's going to get cloudy. And anytime that we get a precipitate, a solid that forms, we always want to try to separate it from the solution. So we're going to be using the centrifuge to accomplish that, because otherwise gravity is going to take a long time to separate the solid from the liquid. So it says to centrifuge and decant the supernatant liquid into another test tube and set this test tube aside for procedure step 5. So the centrifuge has 6 slots available to put test tubes in. It's going to spin really rapidly, and the force of the spinning is going to get all of the solid towards the bottom of the test tube. So I need to balance that, otherwise it'll shake and end up breaking the test tube. So I've got one test tube. I'm going to take a second empty test tube and fill it with an equal amount of water. If they have the same amounts, then that means they weigh approximately the same amount, and when we put them into the centrifuge, they'll counterbalance one another. So cameraman, come on up here and take a look. Look down into the centrifuge. Okay, we're going to put one test tube in one slot and another test tube in a slot directly across from it. Okay, then we go ahead and close the lid, turn it on, and you'll start to hear the motor speed up. It'll get up to its maximum RPM, spinning as rapidly as it can. And you just want to let that, once it gets up to its maximum rotation speed, you want to let it spin for about 5 seconds. And then you can go ahead and turn it off and let it wind its way to a stop. It's always a good idea while you're waiting for the centrifuge to stop to be reading ahead and looking at what you're going to be doing next. It says to centrifuge and decant. Decant means to pour off this extra liquid into another test tube for procedure step 5. Okay, so I've got another test tube here. I'm going to go ahead and pour that liquid into another test tube. If there's a little bit of liquid hanging on the lip of that test tube, oftentimes I'll just dab it on the paper towel to get that last little bit of moisture off of there. So I've got a solution in one test tube and a precipitate in another test tube. This is going to be for procedure step 5, so I'm going to take a pencil label this just with a 5, meaning I need this for step 5. Let's continue working on step 1. It says to wash the precipitate, our solid, with 2 milliliters of water to which a drop of HCl has been added. So remember, our estimation method is that 2 fingers width is equal to 3 milliliters. So I'm going to get a little bit less than 2 fingers width. Add 1 drop of HCl. And whenever we wash this precipitate or anything else, that means we need to stir it. And make sure that precipitate is in contact with all the water and anything else that's being used to wash it. I'm going to rinse that stirring rod off. And then it says to centrifuge and decant, adding the washings to the test tube that I'm saving for procedure step 5. So I have a little bit less liquid this time, so I need to dump some of this water out so that it weighs the same. So one thing you can see here, there's a lot of rinsing and filling tests. I like to leave the sink on and just running a thin stream of water so I can constantly be adding water or rinsing things off without having to turn it off and on all the time. So these weigh approximately the same because the heights are the same. And I'll go ahead and put them in opposite slots of the centrifuge. Turn it on. You'll hear it speeding up. Once it gets up to its maximum speed, let it run for a few seconds. Turn it off and let it slow down. Again, centrifuging time is good reading time. It says to centrifuge and decant, so we're going to pour the liquid off again, adding the washings to the test tube for procedure 5. So when this comes out, the liquid is going to be added here, and I'll have the precipitate left in the bottom of the test tube. So here it is. Add that liquid, those washings, and that last little bit I'll just dab off onto a paper towel. So I've got a solution for step 5, and this is ready for me to start procedure step 2. This precipitate will be used in the next step. That's all for now.